Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning into 1680 The Crow. I'm your host, Gurpreet Kambo. I'll be bringing you your news and sports headlines to 12 o'clock today. The BC government announced new measures to attract more nurses to the province's strained healthcare system. BCIT's Ryan Bailey reports.
The provincial government is now offering financial support for nurses who are returning to practice. There are also bursaries worth up to $10,000 for additional education. For internationally trained nurses, Premier David Eby has pledged $1.3 million to expedite their transition into BC hospitals and care centres. Health Minister Adrian Dix on the demand for nurses.
We're going to have twice as many people over 75 in 10 years, which means that healthcare is going to be required. We talk about needing thousands more nurses in the future. It's for that reason.
The aims of these measures is to address the extreme staffing shortages that's been overwhelmed by the COVID-19 pandemic, RSV, and other illnesses. Ryan Bailey, 1680 The Crow.
A totem pole that was stolen from the Coquitlam First Nation has been returned, according to Coquitlam RCMP. BCIT students were welcomed back to school this semester with a sudden price jump for parking at all campuses, causing backlash from students. Reporter Riley Lyons has more.
BCIT hasn't changed their prices for student parking in 8 years, but come February 2nd, that will change. A BCIT student's daily parking will now cost over 60% more. This has caused backlash from students in the form of a petition with over 1,500 signatures. The president of the BCIT Student Association, Liam Lauren, said that students can't get BCIT to revert this change, but the Student Association can help accommodate it.
I can't directly say, hey, we can't increase this, we can't do this, but I can say, this is what students are saying, and this is what I think is the best thing you guys could do.
In a newsletter sent to all students, BCIT said that students can buy monthly or weekly parking passes as well. The cost increase for long-term buying options is 18%. Riley Lyons for 1680 The Crow.
The City of Vancouver's Greenest City initiative has announced a healthy number of electric vehicle sales in fall of 2022. Our reporter Chadis Leo has the details.
Almost 1 in 4 vehicles that have been registered within the city are now electric vehicles. This statistic comes as Canadians are feeling the pinch on their wallet with record high inflation, high gas prices, and overall cost of living. As a sign of encouragement, the City of Vancouver has advertised how easy it is to own an electric vehicle in the metro area by providing cord cover licenses for curbside charging and offering charging in existing rental buildings. Additionally, there are various rebates for consumers from both the provincial and federal government. Chadis Leo, 1680 The Crow.
Veterinarians across BC are raising their prices almost 8% this year. But as reporter Angelina Mintz explores, it's not just due to inflation, but also increase in quality of care.
Dr. Adrian Walton, owner of Dudney Animal Hospital, has been in the industry for over 20 years. He acknowledges the prices are rising across the board due to inflation, but notes this isn't the only reason the cost has risen so much over the years.
A lot of people get confused with the costs and increases in prices, is not realizing how much quality of medicine has changed over the last 20, 30 years. I started off doing 5 to 6 cat spays and neuters an hour. Well, to improve quality of care, we do 1 an hour.
Walton goes on to add the price increases are due to external pressures put on professionals in the industry. He also notes the price to hire new veterinarians has risen significantly over the years, which has also added to the price increase. Angelina Mintz, 1680 The Crow.
Now, reporter Angelina Mintz joins us on the air now to tell us a little more about this story. Angelina, you mentioned how the cost of new veterinarians has risen a lot. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, thanks, Gurpreet. So Dr. Walton said now the cost to hire a new veterinarian with a starting wage is about the same amount as he makes as a professional in the industry, and he's been in the industry for over 20 years. So it's quite a lot. He says he's currently the only vet at his practice, and so he really needs to hire a new veterinarian to get help, and so then he's also not burning out, because that's a big issue in the industry. But he said because the cost is so hefty to hire someone new, he has to raise his prices.
And with the cost being so high, how is that affecting finding new hires?
Yeah, so it really is affecting that. So he said not many new grads out there. There's not many new grads, so that's definitely hindered it. He said there's about 40 veterinarian postings right now for hiring new grads, and there's only about 20 to 25 new grads that can actually be hired. So that's adding to it for sure. And he's like, because with the increase being so hefty and hard to find, new grads will want competitive wages. So you have to be competitive if you want to find someone, they'll want to go to your practice. So that's adding to the price increase as well.
Thanks, Angelina. The National Parole Board is recommending that convicted sex offender Randall Hopley be charged with not complying with his supervision orders. He was found using a computer at a public library close to a group of children. Hopley was convicted in 2011 for abducting a 3-year-old boy in southeastern British Columbia. He served his complete jail term at the time, which went until October 2018. However, the parole board ruled that he needed long-term supervision due to being a risk for reoffending. According to the parole board's decision to charge him with the recent offense, he did not appear to understand that he'd done anything wrong in the library, and he lied to his case management team about what had happened there. Police in Surrey say that 3 bodies were found in a home in the Fraser Heights neighborhood just after 12 noon yesterday. They believe the deaths may be the result of a homicide. However, they emphasize that there's no ongoing threat to the public. They believe all 3 are part of the same family. Surrey RCMP and the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team will be working together on the case. An explosion that happened at a home in Comox, BC last week was an accident, investigators are now saying. It was possibly caused by cigarettes or portable heaters. 2 people died in the explosion. 1 person was found dead just outside and 1 inside. One neighbor said at the time of the explosion that he rushed towards the home to try and help, but couldn't get close because of the intense heat. According to that neighbor, both of the victims were seniors who used wheelchairs. The Canadian Coast Guard is in the waters off Ogden Point this week. BCIT has announced a new digital health program to help professionals expand their knowledge.
The new program trains professionals in a range of new skills in clinical translation, data and outcome measurement, and leadership. Glinda Rees, the program's head, said that its staff has worked closely with the Canadian healthcare industry to meet future needs. Rees added that the program's graduates will have the skills to improve the digital health industry and its outcomes. This is Jasper Chu for 1680 The Crow.
As BCIT collaborates with Tesla to start an electric vehicle repair, one of the program's instructors emphasized its importance as it relates to future job performance. Jasper Chu has more.
Jordan Woodley, an instructor in BCIT's School of Transportation who will be teaching in the program, said it's necessary to familiarize students with electric vehicles. Woodley believes what is taught in the program will help prospective service technicians better perform their roles.
So having an apprenticeship program that is a little bit more geared towards the electric vehicle is definitely going to help the student perform their job better when working on those specific vehicles.
Woodley added that the program will cover both practical but also theoretical concepts such as electric vehicle basics. This is Jasper Chu for 1680 The Crow.
A vigil was held last evening in Newport News, Virginia, for the elementary school teacher who was shot in class, allegedly by a 6-year-old student last Friday.
In perfect harmony. Friends, co-workers, and those wishing teacher Abby Zwerner well sang "Let There Be Peace on Earth," and they prayed for her continued healing. Co-worker Lauren Palladini, who's a counselor at Richneck Elementary School,
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
The Vancouver Canucks are scheduled to play the Pittsburgh Penguins in Pittsburgh tonight. The Canucks are 17-19-3, and the Penguins are 20-13-6 on their win-loss records this year. So the Canucks are playing a stronger team tonight. Here's Canucks star Elias Pettersson on what he thinks it may take for them to win.
I mean, they're a hard-working team with a lot of skill. We saw some clips this morning on the meeting, like what we did good. So it all comes down to what we bring, and we can focus on if they're gonna be good or not tonight. I'm sure they will, but I mean, we gotta focus on what we can do and how we need to play too.
The Canucks are currently 6th in the Pacific Division. Tonight's game will be their second in a 6-game road trip. On Monday, they lost to the Winnipeg Jets in a 7-4 blowout. Baseball player Carlos Correa has agreed to a $200 million contract that keeps him with the Minnesota Twins for 6 years. He was previously in negotiation with the New York Mets and the San Francisco Giants. In December, he had agreed to a massive 13-year, $350 million contract with the Giants, who called it off a week later due to concerns over a right ankle injury that he had. He then negotiated with the Mets, who had similar concerns about his ankle. The deal with the Twins now is contingent on a successful physical exam, and it could be worth $270 million over 10 seasons if he stays healthy. In NFL news, player Damar Hamlin's charity is receiving lots of money in donations, especially after news of his health issues spread last week. Here's Derek Dennis with more.
As Damar Hamlin continues his remarkable recovery now at a hospital in Buffalo, GoFundMe donations to the children's charity he started before his life-threatening collapse continue to balloon. The latest tally, nearly $9 million after a goal of just $2,500. Hamlin's family formalizing the charity as the Chasing M's Foundation Charitable Fund. So far, 250,000 donors have contributed, most since Hamlin's cardiac arrest on the field during last week's Monday Night Football game between the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals. Derek Dennis, ABC News, New York.
The Seattle Kraken's Martin Jones had his second shutout of the season yesterday, beating the Montreal Canadiens 4-0. It was the fourth straight win for the Kraken. Here's the call from the game where Tolvanen scored a goal in the first period with assists from Vince Dunn and Yanni Gourde.
Vince Dunn sends it out to Yanni Gourde, up to the right wing side. Kraken back in. Gourde zips it across into the slot once again. Dunn on the back door. Eli Tolvanen scores. Eli Golvanen for the Seattle Kraken has put them on top 1-0 with 13:06 to play in the period.
That was your sports and news updates to 12 o'clock. You're listening to 1680 The Crow, and I'm your host, Gurpreet Kambo.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. Now it's time for the comment.
It is now time for Monday's edition of The Comment. Today's comment is going to be on the current state of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Everyone is talking about how if the Leafs don't win a round, that they should blow their core up. I'm here to tell you, no, that is a very bad idea. This is a core that consistently gets you to the playoffs. The Leafs finished with a franchise record 115 points last year and are on pace to equal that again this year. Matthews, Marner, Tavares, and Nylander are all on pace for somewhere between 80 to 100 points. Trading any one of these players isn't going to make your team better. The Stanley Cup is a hard trophy to win. Look at how long it took the Washington Capitals to win the Cup. Look at how long it took Tampa Bay and Colorado as well. They all stayed with their core players and their patience was eventually awarded. This isn't a core like Vancouver, where there's individual success but no team success. The Maple Leafs core puts up individual stats that leads to team success. Just stay the course and you will be rewarded, I promise. Thank you for listening to The Comment with Mac Fleet on 1680 The Crow.
Extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Culture can be defined as all that a people are and do at any particular time and place.
Train of 38 Grinder, track section 2451.
The city is the focal point of a culture. In British Columbia, the Vancouver region. Vancouver, like all cities, is a dynamic entity pursuing a lifestyle which reflects yet transcends the lifetimes of the people whose interactions create the city. There comes a time in the life of a city, a point of maturity, when its growth and the growth of human interaction within it begin to conflict. The need for mobility calls for fundamental change.
And that change came in the form of today's episode of The Crow Chronicles, the Vancouver SkyTrain. I'm Richard Davis, a journalist who writes primarily about transportation and labor issues, and I am one of the 400,000 people, estimated, who rides the SkyTrain every single day. And I'm here with my co-host, Nicholas Poitras. Nick, why are you here?
I am also here because I am also one of the 400,000 people that ride the SkyTrain every day. I'm also a journalist, mainly a motorsport journalist. However, I very much enjoy talking about SkyTrain. I think transit is a very interesting thing for me. And for Richard, too. So much, in fact, that we're the type of people who would scheme up a fantasy SkyTrain line at lunch. But the main thing about it, though, as much as it might seem very, very weird to talk about it, we're not alone in this very interesting topic when we're talking about transit, especially SkyTrain.
Yeah, we spoke to Rob Chu. He is unequivocally the guy when it comes to transit history.
Absolutely the guy.
Rob is the guy. Before we talk to Rob and get him to take us back to what it was like on the day, Nick, what do you know about SkyTrain on the opening day and the history of it?
To be completely honest, not much. All I really know is that it was built around the time of Expo 86. And when that was happening, they're like, hey, let's use this as like the main thing to showcase. And then that's all I know. And then they built all the lines, the Millennium Line, the extensions, and everything that we know now.
Yeah. So let's go to Rob, and he's going to tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, so basically we're going to go into the development then on how we ended up with the SkyTrain. So way back when transit started in Vancouver in the 1890s, it was just all streetcars. And eventually the streetcar system grew and grew, but things got expensive, and expanding tracks wasn't cost effective in some places. So they started introducing gas buses, and then eventually diesel buses started coming in as well. And then it got to the point after the Second World War where it was just so expensive to maintain a streetcar system. Most North American cities got rid of them, with the exception of places like Toronto. And you've got San Francisco that maintained a few lines there. Same with Philadelphia as well. So Vancouver, unfortunately, lost pretty much all of the streetcar systems. And by 1954, the last one, I can't remember. It was 1954 or 55. One of those years, the last streetcar ran down Hastings Street. And then the last interurban line ran in 1958. So that was done. Everybody's in their cars now. Everyone's driving. Freeways are coming. Everybody's going to move out to the suburbs. So that was the next big thing, or the next trend to happen in the 1950s and 60s, as with most North American cities. So you got all that traffic congestion and all. Vancouver wanted to build a network of freeways, just like LA and other cities. Had all these plans out. It's going to go right through the middle of Chinatown and Gastown. There's going to be a third crossing just by Stanley Park there to get people to the upper levels highway. Basically, there was a lot of opposition, and if that happened, a lot of these neighborhoods would have been destroyed. So basically, with all that opposition, we had to actually, City Council had to actually stop the freeway plans, and basically that whole thing was defeated. And then there was a need for rapid transit still. So, okay, to solve the problem, we have this new Burrard area rapid ferry that they're thinking of, and this is in the early 70s, that would cross from downtown Vancouver to somewhere in North Vancouver. Okay, let's get that started. Okay, that solves that one. We're working on that. But then there's something missing for the rest of the region. We need rail or something like, or express buses. So that's where they decide, okay, let's test out a light rail car from Germany. Let's buy one, bring it over. Never really got anywhere, change in government and all.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, when the years went by, they decided, okay, let's try out this one here. There's this new technology originating from Ontario. That's advanced light rapid transit. Let's give that a shot. And then Vancouver's going to be hosting a World's Fair in the 1980s. Let's put this all together. And that's how you ended up with the SkyTrain eventually. It was a very expensive system. And that's where all the critics came out at the time and said, you should have stuck with light rail. Vancouver can't afford this. And they got funding from all levels of government. And then they said, hey, you know what? 1986, the World Fair is coming. And guess what the theme is? Transportation and communication. What better way to show off this fancy Canadian technology by bringing it to the World's Fair, where you get dignitaries like royalty, presidents, prime ministers, all coming here to see this. And that could be a boom for Ontario if they were to sell this product.
Ontario wasn't the only one showcasing stuff. As Stephen Gordon, who went to Expo 86, explains, other countries got into the transport fund as well.
Of course, the theme was transportation, so there was a lot of cool. Japan had their SST there, a short section that you could go on the magnetic rails, back and forth. Obviously, couldn't get really fast, just being a short section. But I mean, everything was cool. I mean, to me, when it had of all the expos, it's probably really blessed that they had this in Vancouver.
Now, as fancy as all those pavilions were, the backbone of transportation to get people into Expo 86 was the SkyTrain, and it used a little special method to do so, as Stephen explains.
At Stadium SkyTrain, of course, you look over to where you have that track over there, and that was a special train that you would board from Expo 86 to go to Waterfront, and then you would go to Canada Place, which was part of the Expo 86. So they had these special trains that would whisk you back and forth.
After learning about everything with Expo 86, it sounded really awesome. It's in Vancouver, it's in my hometown, and all these countries coming in to showcase all this brand new technology at the time. That sounds so awesome, and it's something I very much wish I could experience, and I wish I could go back to that time.
So, Nick, we both ride the SkyTrain, right? And I feel like it'd be fair to say that it's reliable, efficient, it gets you there on time, but most importantly, it gets you there safely, right?
Yeah, over the last few months of me taking it, I've had completely no problems. Apart from obvious construction delays that, that's supposed to happen, it's been pretty smooth sailing for me.
But, Nick, what if I told you it wasn't always this way?
I couldn't agree with you more. As we're about to hear from Darcy Rivard-Kinder, she and many others were quite concerned.
I think that was, for me, for sure, that was an issue. I don't think it was something that, I wouldn't have talked about that with other passengers at the time, but definitely other friends and family would the car continue going or would it stop? And I know in the early days, I can't remember if it was right at the beginning, but I do remember definitely reading and hearing about stories where, the train would just stop on the track somewhere and people would be stranded, I guess is the word to use, for a period of time. That fear of having to get somewhere or wanting to get somewhere and then being derailed, I guess, for lack of a better term, because of the uncertainty of whether it was off the tracks or whether there was, some mechanical issue that prevented the cars from moving. And then, of course, no other cars can come behind. And that was just always, I think, sort of in the back of my mind, more so years ago than now when I visit Vancouver and I ride the SkyTrain. It's not something I think about. I don't worry about going over the bridge portion. It just doesn't seem to be as much of an issue for me personally, I guess, when I ride it, versus then it was like a big thing. Oh my gosh, are we going to get stuck between stations? And then how will we get down? Or do you just sit there? And then, of course, there's no washroom. So if you're there for a period of time, then what happens?
When they first announced it, when they did the demonstration line along Terminal Avenue at Main Street, they were showing off, hey, okay, go for a ride here. And by the way, hey, no one drives this. There's an operator somewhere, and they push all the buttons and make this thing go. And so they tried to ease the public into this. So it wasn't so bad by the time we got to the launch. But for a lot of people who had never heard of such things or are not from the area, this was like some newfangled technology here. Like, will it last or will it just all fall apart after the World's Fair?
And fall apart? It did not. For the last 37 years, SkyTrain has been the autonomous heartbeat, the lifeblood of the city, and a cultural icon for all of Vancouver.
Now, Nick, we were both born in 2004, making us 18 years old, and we've only really benefited from the modern version of SkyTrain. And we weren't able to experience what it was like back in the old days with all the hope, with all the dreams. But now, Nick, we were both born in 2004, and we've only known a city of Vancouver with a SkyTrain. It seems inseparable from the actual city itself. We're not able to go back to 1985 when the hope of SkyTrain was just that, hopes and dreams. Rob Chu was able to help us imagine what it would have been like. He brought us some original marketing materials from the SkyTrain, and, well, we kind of got to geek out a little bit. And I'll finish this out with reading the top of the buzzer. All systems go for SkyTrain launch December 11th. The construction phase of your new rapid transit system has now reached completion. Highly trained personnel are ready to take their positions. All transit are go. Is that proper English? Oh, all systems are go. I'm not reading it. All systems are go for an event that will launch a new age in transit service for British Columbia. Well, if that's not predictive, I don't know what is. And on that note, thank you, Rob, for joining us.
Oh, welcome
to the
welcome to the future. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Richard. And thanks, Nick.
All right, thank you.
Thanks for listening to Autonomous Heartbeat, the origins of the Vancouver SkyTrain.
And a big, massive thanks to our wonderful guests, Rob Chu from the Transit Museum Society and Canadian Transit Heritage Foundation,
Stephen Gordon,
and Darcy Rivard-Kinder.
Research, production, and hosting done by me, Richard Davis.
And me, Nicholas Poitras.
Mixed and recorded in Control B at 2 Roper Avenue. Clips from our intro and outro are from the documentaries Going to Town from 1985 and On Track from 1983. Permission for use of these clips was provided by BC Transit.
And a special thanks to Ian Foote and Aaron Laforette for saving our asses.
It seems as though the city and the people who are the city have bloomed to fulfill a new sense of destiny, to greet a beckoning capacity for urban maturity, and share it with the world.